Well, it's a beautiful sunny day, and I'm on my way out to the square foot garden to do some more transplanting. I've got 5 of the flats that were in the light garden earlier today. Some of the things in each one of them are going to be transplanted. I'm going to transplant all of the beets, so there's 2 flats that won't have to go back under the lights, but most every other tray has something in it that's not quite ready to go out and will be going back under the lights. I think the lettuce looks particularly good. This is about a week earlier than I usually plant anything outside. We're having an exceptional spring, and the long-range forecast for the balance of this week doesn't give any danger of frost, so I'm going to give it a try anyway, and these things will be going under floating row cover, which should protect them from any light frost or anything that we might get. So give it a try anyway. If you saw my previous video, you'll know that the floating row cover here looks a little different now. I had just draped it over and held it down with stones, and later on that day we had a few light rain showers. I came out and the water was pooling on top of the row cover and sort of pressing down on the little seedlings. I was scared that it might crush them. So I sort of turned into a circus tent. I took a piece of bamboo cane and shoved it down into the soil in the center and put the row cover over that, and that seems to have cured that problem. I think I'll do the same thing with this next bed behind it that I'm going to put under row cover today. This is just a little peek under the row cover, and the seedlings that I put out are looking very good. Don't seem to need any water. They're still quite well watered, quite damp. So far so good. Potatoes that I planted in containers that had long white sprouts. The parts of the sprouts that I left above the soil have now turned green, and they've got nice dark green leaves coming out on top. So looks like that's going to work. 2 of my 3 varieties of lettuce are ready to go out into the garden today. The 4th variety, I only planted the seeds a week or so ago, so it'll be another week or 2 before I bring those out. And the square foot gardening book says 4 per square, so I think I'll put both varieties in each square. Make a little more interesting looking garden with the 2 different colors of lettuce. Both varieties seem to have French names, and they're both heritage seeds. One is called Merveille, and the other one is called Got Jaune d'Or. Well, that's 4 squares of the lettuce planted. I'm going to give them a little drink of water before I move on to planting beets. Well, the square foot gardening book says 16 beets to a square foot space, so that's what I'm going to do. It seems quite crowded to me, but I guess that's the idea, just maximize the product that you get off any space. But anyway, if I think they're not growing properly, I can always take every other one out and eat them and let the other ones grow to full size. Well, that's one of my 3 varieties of beets planted. This one's called Deacon Dan. It was the favorite beet of I think, Amish, maybe Mennonite deacon in the latter part of the 19th century, and it's been maintained ever since as a heritage variety. They grew well under lights. Here's hoping I didn't kill them when I transplanted them outside. Well, that's the other 2 varieties of beets planted. One's called Guards Mark, and the other is just called a golden beet. It's a heritage golden beet. The Guards Mark, I think, might have been bred up from the Deacon Dan. They're both those varieties that have, like, when you slice them into red and white circles like a bullseye. Deacon Dan isn't quite as perfect as the pictures that you see of the Guards Mark, but they're both that type of beet. I think they're going to be all right. They look a little knocked over now because I just watered them, hit them with a lot of water. Get them covered up with the row cover, and hopefully they'll make it through the night. Well, there's that 4-foot square raised bed completely planted. I just planted 1 square of fennel and 1 square of Swiss chard to finish it off. 4 plants in each of those squares. Over the left-hand side there you see a row. It doesn't appear to have anything in it, but that's planted with carrots, and they're actually coming up quite nicely now, but the foliage is so small that it won't show up on the video. And there's one square in from the right side there that doesn't look like there's anything in that either, but that's calendula flowers, and a few of those are starting to come up. Well, it's everything covered up, and I now have 2 circus tents. Hopefully that will keep the frost and the bugs off the tender seedlings for a few weeks until I uncover them. A little look at the peas that I planted 2-3 weeks ago. They're up and growing quite nicely. You can tell the difference in the color or not, but these first 2 squares are the heritage blue pod peas, and the next 2 are another heritage variety called tall telephone. There's quite a difference in the color when you're actually here looking at it. The tall telephone are a darker green, and the heritage blue podded ones are sort of a yellowish green color. They're both planted in the same soil with the same compost, so I don't think it's anything to do with soil conditions. I think it's just the difference in the plants. Another little look at the flowering quince before I go up to do some work in the greenhouse. I don't know if you've been able to see the clouds of bugs that are out here today or not. Whatever they are, a little white fly, but they're neither biting nor lighting on me, so that's quite all right with me, but there certainly are plenty of them. Well, that's the greenhouse all planted. I just planted a grow bag with 2 heritage eggplants. The variety is called Red China. I'm not sure if that's a comment on communist China or if that means the eggplant is going to be sort of a reddish color. Time will tell, I guess. And I planted 2 of the ground cherry plants. I've never grown ground cherries before, but from what I've been able to research on the internet, they're related to the tomato family. And my tomato plants in the greenhouse always do much better than the ones out in the garden, so I'm going to plant 2 of them in here, and I think I have 5 more that I can put out in the garden somewhere, so we'll see the difference. The other things that I planted last week, the tomato plants, are all doing very well. I also planted 2 greenhouse cucumber varieties called Carmen from seed, and they haven't come up yet, but it's lovely and warm in here today, so I suspect another day or 2 like this and they'll come through the soil. I'll close this video off just to look at a couple of shrubs. This is a euonymus. When it gets its new golden foliage this time of year, it's so bright you'd think it was in bloom, but all it is leaves. It blooms a little later on with a very insignificant blossom that you hardly notice. In the center there's a rose bush. It'll be a while yet before it blooms, but I just wanted to give you a look at the Kyria japonica, the Japanese Kyria, which is now, well, 75 to 80% in bloom, I guess. There's still buds to open, but it's quite lovely this year.